Okay. Sorry about the delay there. Let's begin with 2 minutes of silence. Okay, thank you for that. I don't know if anybody's willing to read 72 and 73 here.
I can read it.
Thank you, Chris.
72. The Dead Sea fruit assumes the most glorious mystic appearance, only to turn to ashes on the lips and to gale in the heart, resulting in depth ever deepening, darkness darkening, still folly for wisdom, guilt for innocence, anguish for rapture, and hope for despair. And once being mistaken and having acted on their mistakes, most men shrink from realizing their error and thus descend deeper and deeper into the mire.
What is mire?
It's like
Like a swamp.
dirty, mud, murky.
Okay.
That's wrong.
So once they're mistaken and having acted on their mistake, what it does mean that they have noticed that they have made the mistake. Like they have, once they are mistaken and then they have noticed that they have mistake, then most men, by realizing this, they got deeper and deeper. Is I understand it correctly, or does it mean? What does it mean? Like once being mistaken and having acted on, what does it having acted on mean?
Yes,
Go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Chris. Oh, sorry.
I think it says that so once they have made a mistake and they acted on their mistake, most men shrink from realizing their error, meaning they don't admit their mistake. And because they don't want to admit it, they don't want to recognize their error, they descend deeper and deeper into the mire. That's how I understand it.
Yeah, so someone might almost unconsciously see that they've done something wrong, and because it's painful to see things about ourselves that we don't like, they'll hide it deeper in unconsciousness. And in that way, our intuition and our discernment gets worse and worse because of that one initial mistake that we won't let ourselves see, and then we start seeing less and less. There's a TV show. It's called Breaking Bad. I don't know if anyone's ever seen it. It's rated as one of the best TV shows that's ever come out. It's pretty good, but it's also extremely violent, not very theosophical, except for that it shows this man as he was initially a chemistry high school teacher. He gets cancer and he wants to start making money for his family. So he starts making drugs, and throughout the course of this TV show, you can see how his discernment does exactly this and gets slowly worse and worse until by that initial mistake of, illegally making drugs to make money, you can see that he's gone completely into the mire, into the dark side. It's a pretty good visualization of what Blavatsky's talking about here.
I think I saw like at least some first seasons of it. I also
Okay.
think it was good. Like he wanted from the bottom of his heart good because he wanted to support his family in case he would be dead. And but then the things went out of his hand and he let them be. Yes. In that sense, it is good that we don't live forever. Like there's a death that cuts us off, making forever like bad karma. And then maybe there's some other life where we can little bit like erase it. And there's hope in that sense. Because if we were in this one direction and it's bad and we deny it and nothing is changed, then it's like it's really hard to come out of it. But what do you mean by Dead Sea fruit?
In the previous slide, Blavatsky talks about how there's two paths, a wide gate and a narrow gate. It's either the previous slide or the next one that we'll see. And the Dead Sea fruit she's equating with doing what's in the TS called black magic, doing things that hurt other people for selfish gains, and that's the Dead Sea fruit. Just trying to gain things for ourselves instead of helping the world. This enchantment that we feel, you can see it all over social media. That's what it's all about, really, for the most part. People sharing things about themselves that look beautiful and glorious and enticing, and it's all essentially selfish. But because we're in this Kali Yuga where the majority of the people around us are relatively young souls, and this is what they need, these selfish things. But for people like us that are trying to reach something higher, that stuff is extremely dangerous. And if we've seen anything higher and then use that for these selfish ends that we see all over social media, it's going to drag us down and we'll be way worse off than the people around us that are younger, I think.
Yes. I think the thing is that people are so stuck in this physical world that they do not even see or they do not even know like to desire something else. They really feel that this is all there is. And although like in some level, there is like a feeling every once in a while. I think in every person's life, there is some feeling of something, there's something else, or there's a moment when you look at the sunset or you hear something beautiful, or like, I think every person have at least some of those moments that are taking out of this world, but mostly the life and the thoughts are so consumed by this material world that they think this is the happiness. I can't say they because oftentimes I also think that.
Yeah, no, it's hard. Even if we see some of these things, we're surrounded by people that see things exactly like you said, and it's going to keep dragging us into it. I don't know. I think that if someone is interested in real, serious spirituality and is born in something like this, I think it means they're ready to try really hard, because you'd have to pursue this path and not get sucked into the glamour that everyone else around us is.
Is it like, how do you understand what is it said in 2072? The dead sea fruit assumes the most glorious mystic appearance, only to turn to ashes on the lips and coal in the heart, resulting death ever deepening, darkness darkening still, falling for wisdom, guilt for innocent. How is it guilt for innocent? And anguish for rapture.
I think it's saying that, and Chris, please jump in whenever, but to me, it's saying that when the selfish motivation is what's driving us, a lot of times it tricks us into thinking it's not selfish until we get it. And then we realize it's emptiness. So say, for instance, someone has this relatively selfish ambition to be the leader of an organization, be it the Theosophical Society or whatever, and that's what they're going for. Their minds can trick themselves into believing that's a selfless thing they're doing, but in reality, they just want, personal stature or whatever it be. And they work really hard, and then they become the president of the TS or whatever it is. And once they're there, and maybe a few years later, maybe immediately, they realize that it's empty and they were doing it for themselves. And I think that's what it's talking about. Light on the path. I think that's why the first rule is kill out ambition. And then it talks about how, its results turn to dust and ash in the mouth, like death and estrangement. It shows the man that to work for himself is to work for nothing.
I agree with Seth. So this Dead Sea fruit, the way I interpret it, is like the goal of the black magician. So they might think that, well, it appears like something glorious to them. For example, they want to accumulate wealth, so it appears glorious to them. But once they achieved it through the use of black magic, they realize that, like what Seth was saying, it's really empty. It doesn't really provide the happiness that you want, and it doesn't really give that joy, that gladness that you find in pursuing true spirituality. That's why that it's a gall in the heart. And that's why, as they continue to pursue these worldly goals using dark magic, they go deeper and deeper into darkness, and they go deeper and deeper into folly instead of wisdom. They go deeper and deeper into guilt instead of innocence. They go deeper and deeper to despair instead of hope. That's how I interpret it.
Yes. I don't think that it is possible to become. I think it is possible to come in a lot of places with like you said, but I'm hoping it's not possible to, in theoretical it is, but not possible to become president of the Theosophical Society with that in mind, or at least, like you said, stay there long if that's the case. But I was thinking the guilt for innocence. Is it that you're feeling guilty because you have done something bad for those who are innocent, or is it that
I think she's just being dramatic here. HPP
I
style,
think
just yeah.
For me, I think she means that the black magician is choosing guilt over innocence. Like she's doing something bad deliberately instead of choosing something which is good. So she's choosing guilt over innocence. I don't know.
Okay.
It's 18th century. It's
Yeah.
19th century now.
In poetic form, yes.
Yes.
Poetic form saying the same thing over and over for dramatic effect.
Yes.
Was there anything more on these two?
So if you do not realize your mistake, you will repeat it and go deeper and deeper. Yes, I agree.
Would anybody want to read these three?
Yes, I can read. 74. Although it is the intention that decides primarily whether white or black magic is exercised, yet the results even of involuntary, unconscious sorcery cannot fail to be productive of bad karma. 75. Enough has been said to show that sorcery is any kind of evil influence exercised upon other persons who suffer or make other persons suffer in consequence. And 76. Karma is a heavy stone splashed in the quiet waters of life, and it must produce ever-widening circles of ripples, carried wider and wider, almost ad infinitum. Yeah, intention is the most important, or the motivation behind the acting. And like you said, sometimes we think our motivation is pure, although, or we are tricked to think it is totally pure, although it is not totally. And but yet the results, even involuntary unconscious sorcery. Now, what is involuntary unconscious sorcery? Like, is it like thinking bad of somebody or criticizing in your mind, although you can do, you can, try to think constructively, or yeah, is a habit of, like, how can sorcery be involuntary? Like in your group and everybody is, I don't know, talking about somebody bad, and you're just listening, or you're not just conscious of doing it. But I'm just trying to understand how it can be involuntary.
The way I understand it, some people, for example, develop psychic powers unconsciously. Some people are born with them, and then some people develop them after, for example, a long period of meditation. So, as we mentioned before, with that power comes responsibility, right? So, a person, for example, has been meditating for a very long period of time, has greater mental control or mental power compared to a person who doesn't meditate. And that person has greater responsibility. So, like what you've mentioned, if that person who meditates for a very long period of time suddenly had an injurious thought or an ill intention, he may not consciously enact a ritual, but because his thought is actually very powerful, he's already unconsciously generating forces on the inner planes that will carry out his intentions. That's why I think even in the history of the Theosophical Society, there are people who, um, through years of meditation, were able to develop psychic powers. I forgot that his name, but I think there was one president of the Theosophical Society. I'm not sure if it's a lodge or of the society itself, but he became so mad when he saw people dissecting animals, and his anger, he didn't do anything physical, but his anger was so strong, and because he was meditating for so long, people actually felt his anger on a physical level. I think they were choking, or they felt it, they had some form of illness because of that. So he didn't really want to intentionally do it, but because his thought power has grown stronger, he has greater ability to influence things from the inner side of life. I think I heard that from one of the meditation lectures before. So when you're regularly meditating, the power of your thought increases. And sometimes we have to be more careful when that power increases.
Yes, always think good of others, even if they are acting bad things, you know. I like when Blavatsky wrote in places that it is not a person, it is like the environment or the constitutions that is wrong. It is never the individual, because individual is like a you cannot say it's a fault of a person that he's sick because he's born in a place where everybody is sick. So yeah. So in that sense, always try to see good in others. Yeah. To avoid this involuntary sorcery.
Yeah, it's hard to remember that our thoughts genuinely affect the people around us, especially the more we meditate, like you're saying, Chris, and make spirituality part of our lives. It's a real thing. All right, the next three, if anyone wanted to read. I can read them. 77. Much of this may be avoided if people will only abstain from rushing into practices, neither the nature nor importance of which they understand. No one is expected to carry a burden beyond his strength and powers. 78. There are natural-born magicians, mystics and occultists by birth, and by right of direct inheritance from a series of incarnations and eons of suffering and failures. These are passion-proof, so to say. 79. No fires of earthly origin can fan into a flame any of their senses or desires. No human voice can find response in their souls, except the great cry of humanity. These only may be certain of success. So at least 77 here, this seems to be kind of the battle cry of the new age, rushing into things that aren't fully understood yet.
Like occultism and
Yeah, 78 is also, I think, an important reminder that nothing just happens. Someone may be a born mystic or occultist, but it's not because they're lucky. It's because for lifetimes they've been working at that.
ions of suffering and failure. So if I meet failure or suffering, I should be thankful because I know I'm on my way.
I agree.
These are passion proof, so to say. Passion proof. You mean in that sense that the passions are not going to tilt them on the way anymore?
Yeah.
But if it says no fire on earthly origin can fan into the flame any of their senses or desires, no human voice can find response in their soul except the great cry of humanity. These only may be certain of success. I was thinking, how can they born back into this earth if there's no desires anymore? I've heard like some teachers have some shortcomings just so it will be that they will be able to born back, because if you're totally pure you won't be. But I guess maybe he's talking about the bodhisattvas in that sense, that because of the great cry of humanity, they are coming back.
For 79, well, the way I understand it is that the only people who can become successful occultists are the ones who are no longer driven by earthly desires, and the human voice does not find response in their soul. They are only responsive to the cry of humanity. So the only people who can succeed in tapping the occult powers are those who have developed altruism and selflessness. That's how I understand.
But do you
Yeah.
understand, did they develop it turning this life? I mean, yeah, I mean, they probably have developed it in many lifetimes, but it says no fires of earthly origin can fan into flame any of their senses or desires. This happens during this life, or it has happened before? Or is it like that, you know, when we are born, we are like children, we are like doing all the stages of previous life until one moment you got like this level where you were in your last life, and in that level there's any more desires that, because I'm thinking if you're a small child you will cry, you want to eat, like, and you still have some desires and things.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
probably
it's a
all of that.
process. Oh,
Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
I think it's a process, and maybe someday there will come a point where we will develop that altruism. And once we develop that altruism, that would be the time when we will be able to safely enter occultism.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I agree with everything that you said, Mary Kay. I think that we do, as we grow, even the low stages that we're at, we see stages in ourselves that are probably correlations to previous stages we went to in previous lives, you know. And in the same way that you see a fetus go through the stages of evolution in the womb,
Yes.
as above, so below. At the same time, I think that someone could, in this lifetime, uh, be organized in such a way that no earthly origin can flame any other senses or desires, and yet still be forced to reincarnate. Because in spirituality, I get the impression that there's often a very large time delay with anything we do. We begin to work on the spiritual path, and we're still going to be in situations that are almost contradictory to that because of that time delay until it starts catching up with us. And I think someone can have no desires and still be forced because of the karma they've already created to keep reincarnating against their will, even because there's things they just need to make up for or do.
Yes, and maybe they don't have desires or senses in that sense, but maybe they have still some karma to purify for earlier, and though they do not make any new one, yeah, they cannot leave until this is like erased. And at the same time, it must be so that there are this compassion towards all, and this great cry of humanity is calling, and at least there's somebody who will be certain of success.
Yeah. And at that point, it's probably a willing working with karma, if I had to guess. They see these things that they've done wrong in the past, and yes, they're beyond desire now, but they want to come back and fix them out of, you know, love and obligation and what they feel their duty is. On top of it's just their karmic obligation too. All right. 80 and 81, if anyone wanted to read.
I can read. I apologize for my strong Italian accent. But they can be met only far and wide. They can pass through the narrow gates of occultism because they carry no personal luggage of human transitory sentiment along with them. They have got rid of the feeling of the lower personality, paralyzed thereby the astral animal, and the golden but narrow gate is thrown open before them. Not so with those who carry yet for several incarnations the burden of sins committed in previous lives, and even in the present existence. For such, unless they proceed with great caution, the golden gate of wisdom may get transformed into the wide gate and the broad way that led unto destruction, and therefore many be they that enter in thereby.
I was thinking the Golden Gate, is it like suggesting about this golden stairs? The golden stairs that lead to the Temple of Wisdom.
Is the same author that wrote that down,
Yeah.
so it might be.
I was thinking it was like an allegory for initiation. So the golden stairs is like the things we need to do, we need to develop, and then the golden gate is the initiation we have to pass through to reach that expansion of awareness. So it depends on your preparation, whether it will become a golden gate that will expand your awareness, or it would be the gate that lead into destruction.
Yeah, I agree. It says here in 80 that they've got to get rid of the feelings of the lower personality, paralyze the astral man. Sounds extremely hard. I mean, even right now, I'm sweating a little bit because I'm such a, introverted, shy person that just the four of us here makes me nervous. And that's my astral animal, acting up. So even right now, as I'm reading these spiritual things, trying to go in this direction, it's still there causing problems. So to get rid of that, it's got to be very hard.
I understand. I think I have some more than 4 people, but there's a certain limit where I feel like I have to come out of my comfort zone to, to act. But I also think it is depending on who are those 4 people and what they are doing, what they are trying to do, and if they're trying to really understand something that is important for me and everybody else to understand, then this is like a little bit easier, I think. But how can I ask you, how do you understand the last part of it? And therefore, many be they that enter in thereby. Wisdom
Is
may
that
be
80 or 81? 81. For many, maybe enter in their mind. Oh, just that the large gate of destruction. There's a lot of people that go into it. That's all it's saying in 19th century English.
But the gate of destruction, like what is the destruction? Is it the destruction of the lower self? That if you're like getting rid of more and more of your lower self, turning to life, then there's less destruction to experience after that? Or how do you understand? Because it cannot be really destruction because the soul is like.
Yeah, in the next slide, she clears that up more, makes it
Okay.
more understandable. And essentially it's the destruction of becoming a dupa.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Because I was gonna say, for such, unless they proceed with great caution, the golden gate of wisdom may get transformed into the wide gate and broad gate that lead into destruction. So I think that one leads to initiation, but if you're ill prepared, it leads you to a different path, the path of the Dugpa, like what Seth mentioned.
Yeah, and maybe
Okay.
the narrow gate is synonymous with the one desire to help the world, and the wide gate is synonymous with the infinite desires that we can have for selfish reasons that are also strong enough to propel us to get these powers, but we'll become dupa.
So they have to, yeah, okay.
Did anyone want to read these two?
I can read it. This is the gate of the occult arts, practiced for selfish motives and in the absence of the restraining and beneficent influence of Atma Vidya. We are in the Kali Yuga, and its fatal influence is 1,000-fold more powerful in the West than it is in the East. Hence, the easy praise made by the powers of the Age of Darkness in the cyclic struggle and the many delusions under which the world is now laboring.
Wow. The West, it is 1,000-fold more powerful in the West than in the East. Seth, you may want to think of moving this side of the earth. 1,000-fold. Think,
I
or
think 150 years ago, yeah. I think after the internet, not anymore. We're all of us together now, I think.
yes.
I thought you were gonna say that's why you had the prayer flags.
Yes,
Oh,
it's working. But I think also you're right, because so much knowledge have in this internet area gone all over the world, and also the books and also the teachings. So it used to be like that when Blavatsky was writing this, and maybe now the West has become better, and maybe the East a little bit. I don't know if I can say. I don't want to, yeah, say the worst, but maybe it's not anymore 1,000-fold. Maybe it's less. Yeah. Hence, the easy praise made by the powers of the age of darkness. Easy praise. Okay. In this cyclic struggle and the many delusions under which the world is now laboring. Okay, we are easy praise for the powers of darkness.
Atma Vidya, earlier in the book, she mentions is trying to elevate our perception to see things as they really are. And she mentions it as, I say this because I love the book. She mentions it as that which anyone who loves light on the path ought to strive after, which I thought was cool.
Vidya is wisdom, I think, in Sanskrit, and Atma is Atma. So it's a wisdom about
Wisdom.
the.
I thought Atma Vidya was theosophy. I mean, not necessarily the theosophical teaching, but the essence of theosophy. So if somebody practices the occult arts not guided by the ageless wisdom, there's a danger that he'll become a black magician. But if a person is knowledgeable about the occult arts, but he's guided by the ageless wisdom, then he'll probably be a bodhisattva or he'll probably be a white magician.
Yeah, Atma is as I understood, this level where you very strongly are the one, like already in Buddhic level, it is like you feel oneness, and this brotherhood of all men, that is like the first object of Theosophical Society, brotherhood of all men. If you, not only man, but like, yeah, all nature. And
Yeah, Atma is the substance. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say Atma is the substance of the highest plane of this universe we're in. So everything that we see around us eventually goes up to Atma. It's all kind of devolved to where we are now in the physical plane. But it's interesting to me that above Atma are two other planes that we in this universe know nothing about. Just to kind of give this perspective that, you know, the highest that we can aim for, Atma Vidya, which is infinitely more than we can even understand and process, there's still two more planes above that that don't even manifest in this universe. It's not stated a lot in the TS, but it is stated in places. It's not something I realized until not long ago.
Yeah,
I was
also
going to say
sorry.
something of similar line, sorry. That for Blavatsky, Atma was like the universal spirit. It's the one life behind all forms. So it's the universal spirit, the one life.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rick.
No, I just also read a little bit this like this his esoteric teachings or that he gave esoteric instructions, I think she gave, and there was also, she mentions, but she doesn't talk about much about those levels, or I haven't read it yet, maybe, but and I also think like there are some books, I think it's the First Principles of Theosophy by Gina Rajatasha and some other authors have also talked about that once you reach to the level of adeptship and further, then you have several ways to go on. In you can act right away, or you can have this kind of nirvana state and act later, but it doesn't mean that this nirvana state is like a total, for us it's like seems like a total bliss, but actually we don't know what they are doing. Maybe they are preparing for some yeah at the end so I like this idea that human being is something that's future is like undescribably enormous. And Atma Vidya or Atma is like the highest that we can, you know, try to grasp with this dual brain, if I can say so. Yeah.
Yeah. Something else that I think helps me keep the grandness of this in perspective is that every sun that we see, if my understanding is correct, used to be a human being. And that's the direction that we're going. That in order for self-conscious beings to propagate and reproduce, they eventually become what is tells in the physical plane the sun, but something much greater in reality in the higher planes. And within that being, we exist. And so we grow to a point where we can do the same thing. And then there's this infinite linkage from us to them and those, you know, above them, which is kind of like a genuine father to child, in which there's, you know, this unselfish bond of love where we're helping other beings become conscious. And that's a part of what we're doing here.
Yes. And if you look the stars at night, then every star that you can see was once a human in that sense.
Yeah.
Had to go through this level. And they're now much further, yes.
Was there anything else on these two? We've got about 20 minutes left in the meeting, I think, and 2 or 3 more slides. '84, if anyone wanted to read.
I can read it. One of these is the relative facility with which men fancy they can get at the gate. and across the threshold of occultism without any great sacrifice. It is the dream of most Theosophists, one inspired by desire for power and personal selfishness, and it is not such feelings that can ever lead them to the coveted goal. For as well said by one believed to have sacrificed himself for humanity, straight is the gate and narrow the way that leadeth unto life eternal, and therefore few be they that find it.
I think maybe at the time that Blavatsky was writing this, Theosophy was a lot more sensational than it is today. I think it was relatively famous back then because of the things that Blavatsky had done. Today, thankfully, I don't think we attract as many people who have a desire for power or personal selfishness through occultism. I'm sure there's still some.
Yeah. The straight is gate. But it says, the straight is the gate and narrow the way that leads unto the life eternal. And therefore few be they that find it. Like only few can find the life into eternal, but we all have eternal souls. So not all will find the way in turning their life into this eternal life. So
Yeah,
so
it's
there are
kind of conflicting
more,
info here, right?
yes.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. This is a quote from the Bible. It's something that Jesus had said. And I could be wrong, but I think his intention is that in this age we're in, there's going to be very few people that reach those heights that are constituted in such a way that they can do that and not get pulled away by one of the selfish distractions. But at the same time, I think it's given, like you're saying, that we'll all get there eventually. We just may be going around the mountain slowly with everyone else.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's like,
agree. Oh yeah, I agree. I think because Blavatsky refers to the path of occultism as like the path of hastened attainment. So what would usually take you millions or thousands of lifetimes, it will compress into several lifetimes. So very few people will be able to find that pathway. But not everyone is suited for the path of hastened attainment, but everybody can follow the regular path of evolution. I think that's what she's trying to say.
I can see that Eugenio has written that the pathway to seek the gate ain't for everyone. It is narrow because who made such a spiritual road, it is of the majority that does decide to pursue such a path. Yeah, that is his introspection. But I'm thinking, aren't we as a race, as a root race, all moving towards to go one day enter this path? Is it in like this big Manvatara or some other, or like I think we are all in a like faster or slower velocity, like going nearer and nearer to this goal to enter this path, to this spiritual road, because we are spiritual and not like physical beings. So I don't think it's few. Maybe it's a few right now, but in a long run, it should be everybody.
I think, for example, the Buddha, I think Theosophy says that the Buddha is already on the fifth round, whereas the majority of humanity is on the 4th round. So the Buddha is like so way ahead of us because he chose that difficult path for himself. And so it is also for the masters. They probably chose a more difficult path for the service of humanity. So I think she's saying that every one of us will pursue the regular path. So from the 5th root race, we'll move on to the 6th root race, we'll move on to the 7th root race, and then we'll start a new round, and then we'll go on developing all of the developmental tasks that we have to accomplish for every root race, for every round. But for beings like the Buddha or the Christ, they chose like a path that's so advanced, but it's so difficult for them to reach that. But they did it out of compassion for humanity. So the Buddha doesn't necessarily have to follow us on the 6th round, on the 7th, because he's already way ahead of us in terms of consciousness. He's on the 5th round already. So that's why he's able to guide us. Even though humanity will move on to the 6th root race, he's still able to guide us because he's still way ahead of us. Even if we move on to the 7th root race, he still can guide us because he's way ahead of us. He's like a round ahead of us. And that is because he chose to follow the path that is straight and narrow. So that's how I understand.
Yeah, me too. Something else that comes to my mind is these masters who are in that high position now, who worked really hard to get there, who are now, even though they could go higher, turned around looking at us, all of humanity, sending forth their very real energies that uplift every single one of us without even knowing in what way we're being helped. They're doing that in the hopes that one of us will eventually rise to that level too, and also do that hard work so that we can then take their place and they go on to something higher, and we then turn around and do what they did. Because in the same way that they're helping us, they were helped by someone who at the time was higher and is now passed on. And they feel that it's their duty to help us, in hopes that some few of us also feel that it's our duty to then help them too.
Yeah.
Right. And this is our last slide, and it ends in Italian, I think. So I don't know if maybe anyone here who speaks Italian wanted to read it. That'd be cool. No pressure.
If while turning their backs on the narrow gate, they are dragged by their desire for occult, one step in the direction of the broad and more inviting gates of that golden mystery, which glitters in the light of illusion, woe to them. It can lead only to Dugpaship, and they will be sure to find themselves very soon landed on the Via Fatale of the Inferno, over whose the portal Dante read the words: per me si va nella città di Oriente, per me si va nell'eterno dolore, per me si va tra la perduta gente.
Can you translate the last two?
Yes, indeed. It may be translated roughly as, for me, we are going in the suffering city. We are going into eternal suffering. For me, we are going among the lost people.
It's so cool that you happen to be here and
Yeah, we got really lucky. Thank you. Kind of a dark ending, but I think she's just trying to warn us to not go that path. The whole rest of the book is guiding us towards its opposite.
And how can we do that we not go to that path? That when we are practicing meditation, then we are very conscious of our other thoughts and actions during the day. Like, for example, or if we are doing, yeah, being very aware of our inner motivations.
Yeah. I don't know if this is saying that anyone who has ever tried to go the occult route, there's probably a lot of people who have tried. I don't know if this is saying that anyone who's failed is now a dupa or not. So that means there's probably a lot of dupas out there.
For me, 85 reminds me of Leadbeater's description of the second initiation. So he says that after the second initiation, certain siddhis or certain powers will develop in man. And because of this, he will be tempted to use these powers for selfish purposes. So he compares this to the life in Jesus's story wherein he goes to the desert and he's tempted by Satan to use his powers for wealth, for fame, etc. So each one of us, when we reach the second stage of initiation, we will develop these siddhis, these powers, and we will also be tempted by the world to use these powers for selfish ends as well as for dark ends. And I think Blavatsky is mentioning here that um, we have to prepare for that time. So right now, our task is just to, like what Seth and Marike mentioned, we have to look deep inside ourselves and try to really see if we can prepare ourselves to enter that path of altruism, so that when we reach that second stage of initiation, when the psychic powers are active, we will be able to be strong enough to resist the temptation to use it for our own selfish or destructive ends. Because if we fail and we use these for selfish and destructive ends, then we will become a dugpa, a black magician, a brother of the Dark Lodge. But if we succeed, then the third initiation will open for us, which is symbolized by the transfiguration of Christ.
Thank you. Yeah, that's well said. It makes me think of our tests in daily life, the things that happen to us, because we have things happen to us, and when we look back at the end of the day, we realize we may have failed in that situation, and it helps me at least to remind myself that these are tests, experiences that I need to look myself, honestly in the eye and see that I need to work on things. And if I were to be given powers like this, it would probably be very bad for myself and others. Because I think only by failing things in daily life do we see where we're actually at. It's very easy to imagine that we're already at this level, but in reality, we've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah. I'm just seeing that Eugenie has written, we can see it through karma or action. Dante's Inferno is a modern representation of a symbolic samsara or compendium of all spiritual actions, good or evil they may be. Although Dante proposed a Christian evolution of sin-ethic perspectives. And he says that he agrees with Christopher, initiation is a key to what you are, being conscious of something through its experience. Yeah, I remember a little bit about the initiations, and I remember, was it Leadbeater or was it somebody else that says that until the second initiation, it is possible also for like tupas to pass it, but after that, the third one is only possible for those who have, chosen compassion and altruism, because the second initiation is the highest that can be reached for those who have selfishness in them, but the higher ones, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. just by the nature of the initiation gives you a consciousness that there is no separateness or something like that, right? So by its very nature, it's incompatible with being selfish.
But also the Tupaship, like we read before, it means that for several lives, it puts you on this other pathway, but it doesn't mean forever. It means for several lives, you will be drawn to that, and then there's possibilities again.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I'm sure those dupas turned white magicians again are probably very interesting people who are a lot stronger because of their sorrows that they went through.
But I remember we discussed with when Fatima was here that to become a tupa, you must have tremendous concentration, and you have to have many good qualities. Just their selfishness, that is the thing. But other than that, they may be much more practicing, or if the motivation is for power or something else, but they are working very hard and if they once understand, the power is not really that kind of power, or this is not really internal, then maybe they put this kind of skanda, or their habit of practice or concentration into the right path, then maybe they will reach it easier. I don't know. I am thinking myself, like, if we are talking about oneness, then we are one with those tupas. We are one of every last human who is not entering in this narrow path. And that's why I'm thinking the ways how, in the end, we will be the same page.
Yeah, I agree. We can't blame them for it. We'd be in the same boat probably if we were to try and do these things now too early. Did anyone else have something on this last slide before we go? Let's see. Gino just put something in the chat. He says, the word power means to do or to can, meaning that artificial power ain't natural power. We need to admit that natural power is way more powerful. Yeah, maybe speaking to the power of, say, a politician versus the power of a yogi, qualitatively different. One has power over external things, which are ephemeral, don't really matter. The other has power over internal things that last forever. Any other thoughts before we go to the final 2 minutes? Okay. 2 minutes of silence before we go. I want to thank you all for being here and bearing with me the first 10 minutes as I broke my computer. I don't know when the next meeting will be, probably next month, but I think we've got to talk it through with some people before we start again. So
Thank you for having us, and thank you for holding it up and walk us through this one of the most interesting book in the world.
it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth.
Thank you, Seth.
Take care, everybody.